Communication service providers are hungry for stronger connectivity, but not all can help with that. With regional headquarters in the US, Israel, Luxembourg, India, and a presence in over 30 countries, TOMIA serves over 400 operators across the globe. I'm joined today by the company's Chief Product Officer, Andrei Elefant, to discuss more about the market and TOMIA itself. Andrei, thanks a lot for talking to me. Let's address the big topic in every single chat that we have nowadays, and let's start with COVID first. What has the impact of COVID been on TOMIA, and what's the trends that you see coming out of COVID in terms of CSP services?
Yeah, thanks. So indeed, a very interesting year for all of us, definitely. And I think that in this period of time, the fact that you have good visibility and insights into the business really played a key role here. And we really leveraged our insights and analytics tools that we have across the platforms into each one of the product lines that we have. So I want to share with you some of the data that we have observed globally with multiple customers and talk a little bit about some trends that we saw over the COVID period. So I'll start on the interconnect side. We definitely saw an increase in the length of the conversations, in the length of the amount of minutes spent on each call. And we've seen that phenomena both in Europe and in North America and also in other regions. This mainly occurred right when the lockdown started and all the restrictions and travel restrictions started. We haven't seen an increase in the number of calls, but definitely there was a clear increase in the minutes of each call. And we saw an increase of about 20% of those minutes for the carriers, and 20% of increase in the call duration resulted in 5 billion more minutes that were sent over the different interconnect. And you know, more minutes, it's more revenues to the operator. So that was at least from the operator side, they on the interconnect side, they leveraged on that period of time. On the other hand, on the roaming side, we also saw some very interesting patterns. First of all, naturally, there was a decrease in the usage of about up to 70% in some regions at the beginning of the period when, you know, the lockdowns and travel restrictions were enforced. But since then, we saw gradual uptake back to around the 2018 figures, and it's slowly growing back to the natural figures. We believe it will take at least a year, maybe two, to get back to normal. But what is more interesting is that in that period of time, the IoT usage, the usage coming from IoT devices that are roaming globally, hasn't changed much. And this created a lot of focus for the operators to look at that IoT segment in the roaming business, as it became a more critical component in their overall business. It was growing before COVID, but with COVID, I think the attention and the focus on IoT got even stronger. So this is in general the main trends that we observed. As part of that, we also provided a lot of dashboards and insights to our customers using our different tools and leveraging the large amount of data sets that we are collecting from the ongoing activities on the daily basis.
Yeah, it sounds great, and it sounds like despite the whole crisis that we're going through, there's a lot of opportunities out there for guys like you. And you've mentioned some of the ways you support your customers. But what would you say has been like the biggest initiative or some of the biggest initiatives that TOMIA has led over this challenging period to really support CSPs?
So good point. So on top of the extended insights that we provided, and which are again so critical in this period of time, and the ability also to forecast and to plan better based on real-time usage, on top of those tools and dashboards that I mentioned earlier, we identified few areas where we can bring benefit to the operators during these challenging times. So first area is related to communicating with the subscribers, with the customers while they are abroad, or with visitors that are in country. That communication channel was critical during these COVID times because governments and different health institutes were desperate to find communication channels to different audiences and to communicate different regulations, restrictions, health support, and so on. So we leveraged, together with our customers, our operators, we opened a few very important communication channels through our campaign management platform that help targeted different messages to audiences that are roaming globally, so they are in different countries globally, and target specific countries with specific messages, and also targeting the visitors that are in country and are less open to the standard communication channels, and communicate to them as well different restrictions of different health-related messages. So this is one area, the communication with the customers through our campaign management tools. This was one very important area, mainly at the beginning of this period. Another element that I also hinted to previously is the IoT. Now with the fact that IoT is becoming a more critical component of the business, we provided to the operators different tools and new capabilities to better manage their roaming agreements related to IoT. We provided, again, different dashboards, different enforcement capabilities with steering the IoT traffic properly, better plan dedicated contracts between the carriers around IoT, and also better tools to manage the disputes between the operators around IoT. So overall, we built a set of tools and we got very significant interest from our customers around this set of tools of how to better manage their IoT business on a global scale during this period.
I mean, that sounds very exciting, but beyond COVID, because before this all started, the industry was already changing quite a lot, especially on the technology front. So there were a lot of technology trends taking shape in 2018, 2019, and they were going to take shape in 2020 as well. COVID might have accelerated some of them. How is TOMIA as a brand addressing the challenges that these technologies put on the industry, and how does that translate into your product roadmap?
So in fact, despite this challenging year, we had a lot of new wins with new technology introduced to the market. And I want to share with you some of these new introductions that we did to the market. For us, it was a very exciting year around those introductions. So I'll start with 5G implementation. We actually had our first 5G implementation around steering of roaming earlier in the year, where we helped the operator to better manage his new 5G roaming contract that he just recently signed. And recently we are starting to see more and more operators signing similar 5G roaming contracts. Just to name, the latest one is the one that AT&T signed with Telecoms. So we are working with some of our customers to enforce and implement those contracts into their networks. And we already have our first deployment that happened earlier in the year. It was actually around the very first industry 5G roaming contract that was signed end of last year. So that is one exciting area, and we definitely see 5G continues to pick up going into 2021. And machine learning is another very interesting technology that we introduced, and this is related to the IoT discussion that we had earlier. We introduced machine learning technology to identify IoT devices that are roaming within your network without you knowing about that. In many cases, they're not generating a lot of usage, but they're still present there. And using machine learning techniques in order to identify those IoT devices, and we're using behavior analysis in order to identify them. This is a very interesting and innovative technology that we introduced, and we have already 2 customers that are using this technology. The third one also relates to IoT, and this is about steering of roaming of narrowband IoT devices that typically needs to be mapped to separate contracts. Last year there were a lot of press releases of operators signing dedicated contracts for narrowband IoT, and again they had to use different techniques in order to enforce those agreements. And we already had our narrowband IoT string of roaming rolled out earlier this year. So as you can hear, there is a few exciting technologies that were introduced to market in the recent months. I'll add on top of that also an interesting development around blockchain, which is a technology we are heavily investing in. We are in discussions with several operators to identify specific use cases where they can bring blockchain into play. And we believe that we'll see going into next year more development in this area.
Okay, well, it's good that you mentioned into next year, because that was actually my next follow-up question. I mean, I think it's fair to say that most people want 2020 to be over. So let's start talking about the future. What can you lift in terms of lifting the veil a little bit on not only just on the product roadmap, but what does TOMIA have in store for us? I mean, this could be acquiring another business, this could be selling something, this could be developing something new. What are you working on behind doors for 2021, and what do you want to launch next year?
Yeah, so while we are opening our eyes on the M&A side, I want to touch more on the areas where we are doing the internal development. And I want to refer to some of the points that I mentioned earlier. With the 5G increasing, 5G penetration increasing, IoT becoming a more important element in the business, VoLTE is being introduced in many places on the roaming side. And this creates additional contracts between the operators. And with these contracts, there is additional complexity to manage the entire business. So we see more and more type of connectivity that are being introduced, more and more different types of end devices. On top of normal users, you have different types of IoTs, and you need to manage each one of them differently. So that means that complexity is increasing. So as a general theme, we are building our solutions in a way that will help operators to reduce that complexity and help them to better manage this more than ever complex environment. And by that, better monetizing on the different opportunities around 5G and around IoT, while being able to better manage also their cost aspect. So we are touching few areas in that sense. One is cloudification. So we are moving all the platforms to the cloud, helping operators to move these platforms to the cloud. And here we are working in 3 areas. One is helping them to move some of the network elements into their private clouds, leveraging NFV technology, where we have probably the biggest and most significant NFV installation worldwide. And we see more and more operators want to move into that direction as well. Another aspect is that we are providing some of our services and our products as managed service from our own cloud operation, and where we operate some of these services for the operators. And the last aspect is moving some of these technologies that I mentioned to public clouds in order to reduce costs on the ongoing operation of those platforms. So these are different activities that we are doing as part of helping operators to move to the cloud. Naturally, all our products are cloud native and they are designed and built for cloud environments. I would add to that the fact that we are putting the different elements that I mentioned earlier, both the analytics and the steering of roaming aspects and the billing and settlement aspects into one platform, and that is in order to reduce the complexity and automate as much as possible the different elements in the business process. And we see that this is a critical element for many of the operators while they want to introduce those new services around 5G and IoT. They need to do that in a manageable manner, and leveraging our TOMIA platform should help them to achieve that. Within the platform, we united a lot of components like our analytics. All the data is sitting down in a big data lake, so you can generate a lot of interesting insights that I mentioned at the beginning. We have shared components that like the blockchain that I mentioned that we are building now. It's built for serving both the settlement side on the roaming and interconnect use cases, and other components that will help operators to manage everything in one context, and help them to also automate some of the processes that goes between the different function within the business process. And again, with the main motivation to be able to capture all these monetization opportunities that I mentioned earlier, while keeping their operation costs as low as possible.
Okay, well, it seems fair to me to say that 2021 is all about simplification, monetization, and value-added disruption.
Right.
Is that fair? Okay. Well, Andrei Elefant, Chief Product Officer at TOMIA, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much, and let's hope for more healthier periods.
Yes, let's hope the next time this is not over a Zoom call and it's over actually like face-to-face.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll see everybody face-to-face.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.